Right, good evening everyone. So first off, how about a big hand for Susan? Right, she's been running this meetup for over 10 years since she was in preschool. What an amazing group of folks that you brought along for the ride. It's really cool. And it's great to see a lot of new faces and a lot of friendly, familiar faces, including the person who created the octribe hashtag for Uni Farmer. And I remember arguing with him about it at the headquarters for the Well. It was like, dude, that is like so obtuse and like so awkward. Like, it's never gonna stick. Nobody's gonna use it. Like,
now I can't get rid of it.
Yeah, yeah. So we're stuck with it. So, anyways, it's wonderful to be here tonight. So I'm Bill Johnston. I've been doing community stuff for a while. I have a small consulting firm called Structure 3C, and we work on big community problems for large organizations around organizational alignment, strategy, value calculations, analytics, that sort of thing. And so if you're interested in chatting, let me know. And if not, that is perfectly fine too, because I am, regardless, completely stoked to be here with a panel of very smart community managers representing a range of commercial interests. So I think this is going to be a really cool session tonight. So, in thinking about framing tonight, you know, we see kind of waves of investment and divestment, if you will. Is that a word? Oh, it's a word. It's a word tonight. Divestment, and we're definitely. It feels like in a wave of investment in communities and related phenomenon. Crowd, social is its own weird thing, but brands are definitely sort of back in, right? But conversely, or analogously, customer expectations are sort of cruising along for the ride as well. So customer expectations are increasingly higher, that you deliver a quality experience, you're always on, you're connected, you're solving problems. And the community team is essentially this fulcrum that's sort of balancing business goals and customer needs and trying to scale via leverage. And so really that's what we're here to talk about tonight, is what insights, what hacks, what techniques do the brain trust represented on the couch in front of you and later on in the room in front of us, like what do we have to kind of put on the table to tease out helpful best practices around scaling. And hack is sort of representative of, you know, an elegant technique or an elegant shortcut to do more with what you have. So enough out of me. Let me introduce the panel. So on the couch opposite me, we have Katie Andresen from Square. Big round of applause. We have Moss from Twitch. We have Aaron Weiss from my alma mater, Autodesk. And we have Josh Circle from Asana. And that awkward pause on my part was because I forgot to give him a shout out. I think this is by far the nicest panel setup I've ever had. It's usually like, you know, like bar stools.
I pulled over the sofas myself.
Thank you. It's much appreciated. It makes me feel like I've always wanted to be essentially man Oprah. And so anytime I have a microphone sitting on a couch, it scratches that itch. So thank you. So we're going to get started, and I have the mystery question for each of you. So I'm going to pick on you in order. The question is this. This is by way of introduction. So if you could please tell us just a little bit about your role and your company before you answer it, and please answer this question. If your community were a superhero, what would its collective superpower be? Okay. And Aaron, let's start with you.
Is this on?
It is.
Hi everyone, my name is Aaron Weiss. I am the community team lead for the Americas team at Autodesk. And at Autodesk, we make software for engineers, architects, and designers. So that's going to be everything from AutoCAD, which is one of the most basic computer-aided design tools that engineers use to design anything from buildings to the chairs that you're sitting on, as well as softwares for construction management, as well as the software that was used to make the movie Avatar. So at Autodesk, we have a big, very ancient community powered by lithium. We like to think that they're one of their flagship customers. We have a long-standing relationship with their team there. And I think if our community was to be considered a superhero, I might have to pick Batman, because we have over 50 different softwares with many different capabilities. So I'd like to think that we have a tool for every different situation we might face. Thanks.
Thank you. Katie.
So I'm Katie, I work at Square, and we are basically a community, primarily a support community for all of our sellers. So they come on when they have a question about our product, if they want to up-level their business, and then also to just like connect with other like-minded businesses. We are also on Lithium as well, and my role specifically, I deal with a lot of seller engagement. So trying to get other sellers to talk to one another, to really rely on one another because they are the experts in their own field. We have a lot of internal people at Square who have owned businesses or currently run businesses, but the people who come to our community every day have a lot of knowledge that they are willing to share on our community. As far as super person, superhero, I think Superman, we have like a very wholesome, like feel-good community, and I think our like superpower would be inquisitiveness. You can never get anything by our community. They're just like, they see every single thing, and they also ask really great questions.
Thank you. Moss.
Hey guys, I'm Moss, and if you're wondering how it's spelled, it's M-O-S. That's not like Moss, M-O-S-S, like growing on things. So I work at Twitch, and a little background on that, I'm a painter, and the reason that's important is because I accidentally fell into community management. I don't think anybody in this room can say the same thing, right? That's the joke about community management. Everybody here is accidentally a community manager. So the superpower with Twitch, and this is probably going to sound really weird, but teleportation. They're the hardest people to find and contact. They just disappear when you want to talk to them. And then if something bad happens or something good happens, they all just suddenly appear. There's 300,000 people watching people play Pokemon. Like, I think teleportation's a really good one for Twitch chat. I don't know, how many of you guys know what Twitch is, by the way, out there? All right. How many people know about the blacksmiths and the painters and the artists and all those guys on Twitch? A little bit, all right. That's the community that I support. I was trying to think of like a warm, fuzzy thing, but I think the teleportation is probably the wrong one.
Very interesting. Our gracious
Is that judgment? Judgment?
Not at all. It was a judgment-free zone.
How do I follow that? I'm Josh. I work here at Asana. I work with our community team. So under community, there are many things. There's actually not our online community, which is viewed more of as a support channel, but our offline community, which encompasses forum champions. Those are the people like leading the conversation, along with torchbearers, which are like the person who works next to you who can't stop talking about Asana. That person is a torchbearer. And then we have certified pros, which are third parties that want to include Asana consulting as part of their business. So that all falls under the community umbrella, along with field marketing. So right now we're on the Asana Together World Tour, which is 8 cities and 24 events, starting in September and ending at the end of November. And social media also falls under our umbrella. So basically all the things that connect Asana customers and enthusiasts to each other and to us falls under the community purview. If I had to choose a superpower for the community as it exists at Asana today, it would be like a combination of like She-Ra and Wonder Woman, because both are like very compassionate and bring people together, and also very strong. Like our community, they have a lot of things that they want to say, they have a lot of opinions, and they're very forthright with them, and they also really believe in what we here at Asana are doing and want to be together with us.
Fantastic. I'm so glad I didn't prep that question with you guys. It's a really great, heartfelt answers. Thank you. So we're going to take the hacks in a way, thinking through sort of a member or customer lifecycle, more or less. That's the guiding principle for the conversation here. And so we'll start with hacks for attracting and onboarding community members. And Katie, I would love you to sort of start us off on that topic, please.
Definitely. So we have a really cool way, I think, of integrating our community, because there's a lot of great brand affinity for Square, at large by itself. And so when we get people in the community, they're even more excited because they're like, oh my gosh, I get to talk about Square more. So we have had a lot of great success in cross promotions with different emails that go out for different teams. So a lot of our teams across different products like the Little Square Reader, or we have now products like Payroll. If we put a little line in there about like, oh, you should check out the seller community, that's what we're officially called, that really drives people over and they're able to read and engage and share their own opinions. In terms of how we welcome people, so we've been experimenting with this a lot because it's something that's really tough when you have a community of people who are signing up. Like we have, I don't know how many people we have off the top of my head who sign up every single week, but to welcome every single one of them would be a lot. So we're experimenting with different ways. We had a series called Welcome Wednesday where we would kind of take a random sample of people and @mention them. And it was working to a certain extent, but then we would get people who like months after they had been @mentioned would be like, hi, like I'm so-and-so. And it was like, okay, that's like welcome like 5 months later. So now we're trying a newsletter that we're hoping with people getting it in their inboxes, which hopefully they monitor more than the seller community, they'll be able to be a little bit more active or proactive in coming back to the seller community to really understand what they can get out of the experience.
Great, thank you. Mas, you want to take a shot at it?
I mean, onboarding at Twitch is going to be really weird, but I think the biggest thing and it's probably going to be a theme about the stuff I talk about, which is there's only so few of us, and there's hundreds of thousands of them. And I think a theme of a bunch of the ideas I want to talk about are how do we empower our community members and the community builders who are on our platform, are the streamers, the content creators. How do we empower them to teach and to onboard and to do all that? Because you have 6 seconds, maybe, if that, to capture someone's attention, to have them understand the platform, and then maybe if you do have that hook into them, they have maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute before they're going to go back to another platform to consume content. They're going to go stream some movies or something. So in that 1 minute, I can't jump into a channel and say, hey, that gray face you just saw means sarcasm, and he wasn't really trying to like make fun of you or something. So you have to kind of empower community members to want to share that information, like, hey, you know, I can show you the cheat code to get into this channel, to understand the language. And then that's almost like empowering community to community marketing. So I think that's like a big hurdle with onboarding is how do you empower them? And that's kind of like an open question. So if any of you guys have that answer, that's probably what we're going to be working on in the next 10 years. I feel like every platform is trying to figure that out as we grow.
Josh, you mentioned a fairly robust community and social ecosystem. Are there different techniques that you use across those different touch points that you found successful in attracting or onboarding?
Good question. I would say yes, but only through a lot of experimentation and iteration. If there's one hack that I would say to use, it's experiment constantly, because you don't know what's going to work with external people. You don't have them sitting right next to you and be like, hey man, like, what do you think about this? You have to try things and wait and see how they perform. So, for instance, with our onboarding, we've experimented with different types of welcome gifts, because one of the things that we know that people who are part of our community want is that feeling of inclusion and being special and getting something that normal rank and file customers just don't have access to. So we've experimented with like small little things, lumpy packs of things, and this is a constant process that like Kimberly, who's on my team, has spent a lot of time iterating. And we think we found like a really good, solid set of things that we can send people to say like, hey, you're special, welcome to the family. By the way, take pictures of these and share them on your social, like that sort of thing. So that sort of thing only comes via experimentation. The other thing that we've noticed is when people join a program like this, like I mentioned, they want to feel like they're special. And there are ways that you can do that without even like sending something through the mail. Like one of the things that we do is like a private webinar monthly just for community members where they get to talk to like a product manager to explain like, here's an upcoming release. Or they get to hear from someone on our marketing team like, hey, here's something that's coming, here's the language that we'd like you to share around it. So they have an insight and understanding into what it is that we're doing, not just like, hey, here's some cool stuff. That's great, but the people that we have really want to understand the why behind it and the who that's behind it.
Aaron, I know just from personal experience of talking to you that one of the challenges that Autodesk faces is just the breadth of the product portfolio and the diversity of your global user base. I mean, how do you think about attraction to the community and onboarding when you have such a diverse global community?
Yeah, so one of the difficulties we face with Autodesk and our largely technical support-based community is that our applications, our products are really heavily technical to use. They're used by people all over the world in completely different ways. And additionally, in order to take the action that we want you to take when you join our community, which is to post, you either have to, one, have a technical issue with one of your products, or two, know how to solve a technical issue for one of our other users, which is a very rare use case. So what we did in order to kind of get people into the forums and exploring is we kind of gave them a little bit of a low-hanging fruit. So during our welcome email campaign, we actually invite our users to just visit a meet and greet board, which we have heavily patrolled not only by our employees, but also by our super users known as our expert elite. And we've actually realized that just by prompting people to post, introduce themselves, get them used to that step of just engaging on the community and going from 0 to 1, maybe not 0 to 60 or 0 to 100, we actually get much better results longer term from that segment of the audience that has posted, hey, what's up, I'm an engineer from Turkey and I don't know how to use AutoCAD at all, but hi. Those people are a lot more likely to post again.
That's fantastic. And so this question kind of goes out to the panel, and you just sort of answered it. How important is it, and assuming you vary, how do you get people quickly to a sense of identity and belonging in your community? Katie, would you mind taking a stab at that one?
Yeah, that's a question.
Got it. Okay. So we actually struggle with that, I think, a little bit because we deal with people who are small business owners who are very, very busy. They have a lot that they're dealing with on their plate, and so when they come to our community, for the most part, they're looking for an answer to their question because it's a blocker to their business. So I think we do this the best with our super sellers. We have a group of about 7 of them who are very involved in our community, and they're kind of the life and blood of our community right now. Like people throughout the entire company know who they are. So we do this, I think, by giving them a sense of empowerment, like what Mas was talking about, really trying to give them a sense of ownership of the community, a sense that they have a place there and that they also have relationships with different product managers, that they're getting this insider view, kind of like what Josh was talking about, where they're able to see a preview of a product that might be coming out. They're all under NDA as well, so we can share a little bit more with them. And then I think also we have, so the community itself is kind of like, we host it on sellercommunity.com. It's separate from social, but it's interesting to see the interaction that takes place. 2 members of my team are here actually, and they deal with both social and community, and I'm dedicated 100% to community. And so to see the voice that people use on the 2 platforms and the disparity between those, it's actually really striking, and I'm really proud of it because I think in the community we have a high level of respect for one another. People really are trying to articulate their problem in a very respectful manner most of the time. And so I think that's one of the ways that the identity comes across, just because we have that high expectation there.
Fantastic. Mas, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, I really want to jump on something you said, Katie, about ownership. I feel like that's like the biggest thing you could give somebody is saying, hey, you not only do you identify with this, but you have power over it. You have the ability to influence it. And we just held our convention, TwitchCon, this last weekend, and the amount of ownership that people feel for the communities that they love. If I'm a Mario speedrunner that speedruns with only my feet, then I'm going to want to build a community around this and find another person who likes the same thing. And I think that ownership, we're very lucky on our platform that it's almost an inalienable thing. It's like a part of it. If I'm going to be watching Mario, I'm probably going to like Mario. So I think the ownership can be something that you can pass off onto them and say, hey, you are the creator of this community around you. You are the one who can influence it. And I think bringing them into product decisions and definitely running a lot of different use cases around them in terms of like the products they would want. I think that's the best way to empower them and identify the people who are going to be your brand evangelists, the ones who are going to be the ambassadors of your product, and also make your products amazing because of that.
Josh, I see you shaking your head vigorously.
Yeah, I agree with all of this. I would just like to add that ownership and empowerment is a double-edged sword. So while you want to give people the feeling of inclusion and empowerment and that they have a voice, the voice can be used for many things. And so sometimes there'll be champions for a product change that you make and they'll tell everyone about it. And sometimes they'll not be a champion for a product change that you make and they'll tell everyone about it. And so you have to go into it knowing that you can empower people to have and hold the conversation. And sometimes the conversation is going to go in ways that you can't predict, control, or even like. This has happened, I think, at every company that I've been at. I'm thinking of a particular time when I was at Evernote and I ran the community there. We had people who were super champions for the product, and they felt very empowered to share with us their thoughts and share their thoughts, especially if they like something online. We had a particular product release that they did not like, and they talked about it online, and that's their right. We want them because they are authentic voices out in the world. And with that authentic voice came some negative feedback. And the product manager for that particular release came to me and said, like, can't you just tell these people to say nice things about us? It's like, well, you know, all those awesome things that they said about us this whole time, this is one of the potential flip sides when we do something that they don't like. So you have to go into this knowing that with empowerment can come some unexpected and unintended consequences.
Thank you, and that's actually an excellent segue into the next topic, which is hacks for the word engagement, but we'll use it for now. Engagement or shaping outcomes, right? Folks way in the back, there are empty seats in the front by Randy. Another.
So many.
And then we have one space on the couch.
Don't feel compelled to move them, it's fine.
It's fine. We won't stop the panel indefinitely.
Just know that we're watching you.
And it's being live.
I see you.
Okay, we're moving on. Sorry. So anyways, Moss, I'll pick on you again. In thinking about, again, like hacks, which are like ideally little packaged nuggets of wisdom to share with everyone in the room and online. How do you think about engagement, the appropriate ask or expectation of engagement, and sort of shaping outcomes into a degree culture in the Twitch community?
I mean, the first thing that I think of was being tasked with working with 154 artists at TwitchCon, because it's right on top of my mind. I can't stop thinking about it, for good and for bad reasons. But I think it's like watching these interactions between those community members when and someone would ask a question and you'd have 3 people say like, oh, I think the last answer was this, and then you have corrections on that. That's the kind of behavior that you want to see, and to foster that, these creators or streamers on our platform self-identify as the ones who want the message to be out there. They have that ownership, and it can get to be a voice that you don't necessarily want to hear. Maybe they're telling you how to run a marketing campaign or something. You're like, yeah, that's my job. I'm doing it. Don't worry about it. So you definitely want to shape the conversation to the point where they know what that you want out of them. You say, I want to hear your ideas. I want you to help each other. I want problems. Those are things I can solve. But then if let's say you don't want people to be very solution focused, which is something in Twitch we really try to avoid, because if you're problem focused, then we can draft up 100 different solutions. But if someone comes to us with a solution and we don't implement it, those are our loudest users who are saying, why didn't you do this? I asked you to do this 2 months ago. So it's kind of that thing of like, okay, well, tell us what the problem is. We'll think about the solution and absolutely have that conversation to make sure that it's the right solution for them. And I think it's very much like making them aware of what you want. And I think that's the easiest way to get what you want out of it too.
And then just quickly, how does that look, in practice for your community team?
I think the easiest way that I can describe it is you're handing kind of you put it together as like a package as a knowledge bomb or something like, sorry, what was the word you used? The knowledge nugget?
Yeah, knowledge nugget.
Yeah, so I always view...
That's Aaron's phrase.
Okay, well thank you. I'll copyright that. Royalties to you. But I think about, like, I only have a few minutes with these creators or these community members because they're so elusive. They have this superpower of teleportation. So if I have that 1 minute with them, I want to make sure that I can give them all of the information that I want them to have. And I find that that's like the hardest part of my job is like, I want to tell you everything, but I know that if I tell you the one thing that I want you to know and that I want you to spread to everybody, then that you will carry that message. But if I give you a packet of something, you're gonna not read the panel topics because you didn't see that part, like an experiment we ran here. So you have to really identify the most important thing that you want out of communication and just go right to that. Skip everything else. If they're bringing you solutions, listen. But it's like you have to say, this is what I want. This is what I need for you. Because their time is valuable. Your time is valuable.
Great, thank you. Aaron, #knowledge nugget. In thinking about shaping engagement outcomes and, I mean, by extension, culture, thoughts from the Autodesk side. I mean, it sounded like you were, and I may be putting words in your mouth, so don't answer this question if I am, but you're sort of trying to pull back the activity from the gravity well of break-fix support and have richer conversations around all the creative things that people are making with their products.
Yeah, so I guess what are we calling? We're calling them knowledge nuggets. Hashtag knowledge nuggets. My knowledge nugget on engagement would come down to if you want to spur a certain action, you need to segment your audience based on what you know about them. You need to target them with outreach, whether that's going to be email, whether that's going to be tagging them on your forum, reaching out on social, and you need to do that outreach in a smart way. So the way I would exemplify how we're doing this at Autodesk right now is we've actually found a way to harvest, and this is an internal program, all of the responses that our employees have ever provided on our forums. And then our goal is to get those employees to respond to the best possible forums posts. So we're taking a look at all the information they've submitted. We're actually using a machine learning algorithm to analyze the information that they've responded to users with. And then based off of new posts that come in, we compare that against that data we have on our employees. And then we generate an email that says, hey, you answered this question about how to install AutoCAD on Mac 6 months ago. Here's a question about how to install AutoCAD on Mac with Linux. We think you'd be a great candidate to answer this. So to generate the engagement, really what we're trying to do is find the right person to do it. Then you want to ask them, but in a smart way. So it doesn't feel like you're asking someone who knows nothing about AutoCAD to answer an AutoCAD question. You tell them, we know you can answer this, you're the right person, go get it done.
Thank you. Katie, we'd love your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so this is actually an interesting question because I think I try to come at it in a creative, like excited way because I think when you are able to put that energy into it, it really shows up in your work. One of the things that we found, we have sellers from all across the country, actually internationally, if you count our international communities, lots of different business types, and so we were trying to think of ways that sellers identify themselves. And one of the ways we came down to it, I'm a woman and very passionate about being a woman in women causes, and I was like, what about women in business? So we're actually going to be launching a women in business group, and we sent out this email to people thinking that we would get, maybe casual excitement or responses from it, and I think we sent it out, and in an hour we got over 1,000 responses, like people writing in comments being like, thank you so much, this is so exciting. So we tapped into a really not obvious, but kind of obvious need for people to be able to identify, find support, find solidarity with one another, and we haven't launched it yet, so we'll see if this actually takes off when we launch it. It could be a dead place in the community, but I'm hoping that because people have a strong affinity towards it, that they're going to be really excited and want to engage in it. So just understanding where your community is coming from. The way we identify this is we sent out that survey, and that is where we found the need for it and the want, and that's why we decided to go and execute on it.
Josh, how do you think about shaping engagement, culture, and are you driving for very specific outcomes with the community programs that you're running?
It's a good question. I think we are. Our program here is actually quite new, so we're still experimenting with what will make sense here at Asana. Going back to your original question on like hacks around engagement, I assume I don't know anything. And that makes it very easy for me to get ideas from other people when I assume that I don't have all the answers. And so one of the things that we did here to drive towards engagement was ask leads from each of the different departments around Asana, like gather them all in one room, and basically had a brainstorming session on, for a product, what would you like to see from an army of people that are outside of this building? What would be of use to you? For marketing, what would be of use to you? For content, what would be of use to you? And from there, it's very easy to figure out what engagement activities that we can do that will drive towards each of those different teams' goals. Because it's very easy for me to focus on like community goals, which are very intrinsic to my function and my group. But as we're talking about raising the value of community, especially up to the like leadership chain, it has to go beyond like what are my community metrics to what are the business metrics that this thing can impact. And the more that I go outside of my immediate team, the more I go outside of marketing where my function sits, the more business value can be created from having this army of people outside the building. When I talk to different people at Asana about what we're creating, I use that metaphor. It's like we are building the army of troops, but we need to give them marching orders. And the more varied types of marching orders we have, different types of people in the community will be interested in going in that direction, or this direction, or following that path. So having those inputs from around the org, I think is the best way to figure out how something can be of value beyond just like what you think community can be. So for me, the biggest hack is just asking.
Yeah, the hack is beginner's mind. That's awesome. So we've got a lot of great examples of things that did work. Would anybody be willing to share something that went hilariously and horribly off the rails?
So this is actually from a previous job, but I used to work in civic tech, and we had a social network for voters essentially, and I was working during the 2016 election. So it was a very contentious time to be working on politics. And I realized very quickly once I was involved in a lot of the projects that we weren't modeling good behavior, and we also weren't cracking down on bad behavior. And so things got toxic really, really quickly. We had a lot of cases of hate speech, just really bad things that were not good for anybody on the platform. I mean, I felt awful about it, our users felt really awful about it as well. And so we ended up coming up, we had really good community guidelines, we just weren't implementing them. And so we came up with a structure and kind of a committee to go through some of the cases in the beginning and take down different things that were just in violation of our community. And it felt a little weird at first. It felt like we were the arbiter kind of what was right and wrong. But we also realized that for the sanity and safety of our community, we needed to step in a more active role. And it became something that I think was very contentious in the community. A lot of people didn't feel like they were a part of the process to kind of be a part of this decision making. And we got a lot of accusations on both sides of taking down more on the right or the left or whoever was upset about our decision. But we tried to walk them through as much as we could and just be really transparent about the entire process.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
At my last company at Evernote, where I ran the community there, I was perhaps a little bit too ambitious with the quality of people that I wanted to be part of the program. The way this played out was, since I was in charge of this and I was basically building it from scratch, I'm like, well, I'll do it my way, and I'll make sure that everyone that actually gets into the program, because it was a closed program, it wasn't open to everybody, would be of the highest caliber. And the way that we did this was by running a training course that was, I think it was 20 to 30 hours on average that people would go through, including all of the exercises and coursework. By the time people made it through, they were top notch. But that severely limited how many people we would get into the program. And the biggest downside was for me personally, because I had to grade each of the exercises that people created. I didn't think about scale when I created the program. It caught up to me later. So it worked out great. We had great people, but I was ready to die at the end of each weekend because I was the teacher that would go home and grade exercises at night, and on the weekend, that was me. So don't do that. Don't do that.
Thank you for sharing that valuable lesson.
It was fun.
So, I mean, it sounds like we're all just talking about the same thing, because there's no failures, there's only things that are too successful.
That worked too well.
Too well, exactly.
It's a hard lesson learned, but also a valuable lesson.
Just go mediocrity, that's go right down the middle. But I actually want to talk about something that was too successful and there was failure because of it. In our community, we have so many different people, like I mentioned, the guy who plays Mario with his feet, and the painter and the blacksmith, and you can't create a community program to identify one of those communities without marginalizing every other community. And when we ran successful programs around, let's say, cosplay, costumes, and being a fictional character, now we have a $70,000 prize pool for cosplay, and now we have our blacksmiths. We have all of our different community members coming to us and saying, well, what about us? So I almost think now it's like, I'm at that point of like, how do I empower them to have their own marketing campaigns around these contests or competitions or charity events? And I think it goes back to that similar thread that I keep thinking back to, which is, if I can do it once, how can I empower my community to do it 100 times?
Awesome. We've touched on this topic sort of generally many times, but let's address it specifically. I'd love to hear hacks for managing advocates and super users or elites, however you describe that that frame. I'd love to hear your feedback and hacks there. Aaron, I'd love to start with you.
I can get started. So it's interesting hearing what Josh said about wanting to have this really high bar set, having a test to come into the program. And at Autodesk, we have what we call our Expert Elite program, which are 450 users based all around the world that are our top tier users on the forums. And we're a very big community. We have, I think, over 5 million users registered. So these 450 Expert Elite actually provide over 30% of the accepted solutions on our forums. So not only are they extremely active, but they're extremely valuable to us. And there's really no limits to what we'll do for these folks. We get them access to product teams to give feedback on betas before there are releases. We also have a monthly webinar where we give them updates, early information about things that are coming to product changes, whether that's our actual products or our forum product itself. We actually had a lot of these folks testing our redesign of our forums. When we completed that, additionally, we send out the obvious things, swag packs. We try to do things that are really cool, like members-only jackets and things that kind of go above and beyond the normal pay grade. And we actually, each year at our convention, have an entire day dedicated to the super user group where we have presentations from executives as well.
Great, thank you. Katie?
I want one of those jackets now.
They're members only.
I'm gonna have to join. So we like to do a lot of things for our, we call them super sellers as well. And I think one of the things that we are kind of exploring right now, we have a couple of super sellers who are very, very, very active, and then we have other ones that are like, when they're called upon, will like get active. So we do a lot of the things where we commemorate kind of milestones that they reach, or like when it's around the holidays, we send them like a little thank you. We try to do surveys where we're asking them like what's working, what's not working, so that they feel like they're being heard, and so that we kind of have a pulse on what is like a pain point for them and what we're doing well, so that we understand like what's their motivation. I think they also like the kind of insider feeling that they get of being able to have a private channel to talk to us, of being able to flag a bug. We have a lot of super users who get really excited about like flagging a bug and the additional like excitement that we don't know about it, which like I understand, because like when I flag something to engineering too, I'm like, oh look, I caught something. What else? Like I think there's a lot of like surprise and delight, which can also turn out very poorly if you set this expectation that you are going to be surprising and delighting, and there's this like expectation that's kind of under a subliminal expectation, and then you don't deliver on it. And previous or next year, there can be, you're kind of setting people up for failure. So we try to vary things a little bit just so that we're not falling into patterns where we have this expectation set that is, just too reliable, I guess.
Great. Speaking of being too reliable, skip. Josh.
I'm not sure what that means.
Well, because I didn't want to just put that in line, because Oprah would never do that.
That's true. Man, Oprah.
Thank you for saying that.
I mean, for me, I actually really like what you said about delight, because I think, Kimberly, you and I just talked about this in our meeting today, how important delight is as it relates to community participation. And our program is really just super users and advocates. So the majority of the people who are part of the Asana community writ large, they would probably be active on the forums, but everyone who's part of the program that I manage, they've raised their hand and said, I want to do extra, I want to be part of something extra. So even just having that level of segmentation has been very helpful for us in figuring out how to engage people, what we want to do with them, how we want to leverage them, and what we can do for them. And for us, a lot of it is mirroring the experience of using Asana, the product. How many of you use Asana? So a few of you. So you know how when you complete a certain number of tasks, we can't tell you how many, like a unicorn shoots across the screen or a Yeti dances across the screen. That's like a moment of delight, and that's one of the things that keeps people coming back to Asana. So we're trying hard to mirror that experience in the community that we're building to foster that feeling of you're part of something special, this is really Asana, and that's not easy to figure out how to do, but that's something that we're striving towards.
Moss.
So it's been a while since the original question. If I could rephrase it, and maybe you could check.
You can make it your own. But
Well,
the original frame was around super users or elites.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that's kind of come up is like, how do you identify them, and how do you build that trust? And I kind of wanted to attach to that part of it, which is with our community, we have these people who spend 8 to 12 hours a day creating content, and they're already super engaged, but maybe we can't trust them with telling them about a new product, or we can't bring them into our headquarters to do some kind of use case with our engineers. It's up to finding those honest connections with people, and I feel like the only way that you're able to do that is in real time, whether it's a real time chat over Google Hangouts, or you're able to jump into a real time chat. AOL Instant Messenger is obviously that. Oh, someone scoffed me. I'm sorry. Discord, I guess, is the new one. But yeah, if you can find those ways to have those honest connections with people, that's when you really connect with someone. Like I had this moment over the last weekend where these artists were saying, can I sell stickers at the convention? I just want to sell stickers. I make hundreds of dollars off stickers. And in the public chat, I had to say, no, we cannot allow this. I'm sorry, but we must not allow just the robotic PR speech. But then I instantly reached out to them and I said, look, if a sticker ends up on the ground, we get fined $5. Just be careful. So now that community member feels empowered with this information, like, oh, they reached out to me. Now I know the reason. And so whenever that question came up again, I kind of just like hid a little bit. I didn't answer it, and they would step in and just say, just make sure their stickers don't get everywhere. So, but if I told the wrong person that, or if I had established a connection with the wrong person, I think it's the problem there is identifying who are the people that you can trust. And I think that trust is something that you can get through experimenting in honesty. Like maybe you do the Tyrion Lannister thing, like I'm sending her to Dawn, I'm sending her this way, do you see it? Like, nobody watched Game of Thrones? No? Okay, one person. Out of the entire audience, okay. It's a tough crowd, sorry guys. I'm a younger generation, I guess. I'm a gamer.
Okay.
Okay, go on.
Okay, so lightning round. Let's get some adrenaline going. Juice the panel a bit. So, you have a new community manager starting. It's their first day. You have 15 seconds to tell them 1 to 3 of the most critical things they need before Thanos snaps his fingers and you disappear. What would you tell them about your community? Aaron.
I would say not to engage with our expert elite community unless you know exactly what they hear, which will take 6 to 12 months of understanding and engaging with them on a regular basis before they're going to listen to you.
Katie?
I think admitting mistakes when you make them and being just like as upfront about it as possible.
Awesome.
I think the biggest piece of advice I give somebody is listen to what people are trying to say. Because sometimes they'll yell at you on social media, but all they're saying is, I'm really passionate about this. And I think a lot of times community managers, this might come up with like the mental health stuff. It's like, you can translate what somebody says and understand them, but you have to not put it on yourself, and you just have to kind of put your awareness on what they're thinking. Oh, was that 15 seconds?
This is beautiful. Or you could just tell them to read the 4 agreements. Josh?
Very similar, just listen and learn.
Thank you. Okay, so we're winding down the list of questions, and we're going to focus more internally at this point and more around business value. Do you have hacks or advice about communicating business value internally? And, because you brought up a really great point, Josh, bringing other teams along for the ride with that sort of shared value discussion. Josh, would you mind taking a run at that one?
Yeah, sure. So I touched a little bit about creating business value across the company, but so here at Asana, we use Asana, and we use OKRs. Everyone familiar with OKRs? Just like objectives and key results. So on the community side of things, we have key results for different aspects of our program, from recruitment to engagement to what's happening on social and events. Each one of those KRs is listed in Asana, so we can show anyone who's interested at any time how we're tracking towards each of those, and we do those on a 6-month basis. So you're split in 2, we call them episodes. Each episode has a different set of KRs, and so for us, it's actually really simple. We come up with what the KRs are and just show them. I think my biggest piece of advice would be get clear on what your goals are and don't hide your progress. If you're having a challenge, like making progress towards your goals, talk about it, don't hide it. And I think in the world of community, I've often seen it be where people are very afraid of metrics and reporting, and you have to not do that. You have to be ready to share and show what you're doing, so that if you need help, you can ask for it, and that things aren't a surprise down the line.
Moss?
I think one of the really interesting things that you could do is you could take the idea of sorry, just lost my train of thought. I was on 5 hours of sleep here. So the idea of taking a user and bringing them into a conversation, and that conversation could be with a product team who's developing a new product or a marketing campaign. And you really want to embed them in there. And I think taking someone who's a power user and bringing them into the conversation, it's so much easier to have them talk about what they think the product is like, rather than you being in there and saying, I think our community is going to hate this part of it or be confused about this. When a community member could come in there and be like, I don't understand what that is, and this seems like it's too dense here or something. So I think bringing a community member into those product discussions or the ideation sessions or reviewing any of that kind of stuff, whatever department it is, you have to kind of embed the community in there, and you then become, the community team then becomes that tool, that resource that empowers the product. I always go back to this idea of Justin TV was what Twitch came from, and the way they built Twitch was they went to every power user and they said, what is missing? They generated a list of a bunch of things, and then every time they built one, they went back to that person and said, hey, we have this. We just built it for you. And I think that's the best way you can empower a product with community and then show the value of it. It becomes inherent in it, where your product is built on the foundation of the community, and there's no question about the value at that point. Sorry about losing my train of thought.
No, we hardly noticed, honestly.
Yeah.
Katie, how do you think about the value and business impact?
Yeah, so...
Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Totally.
Oh man, it's spreading.
Inside of Square.
So I have two thoughts on this. First of all, hire yourself an Ernad. Ernad is our analyst. He is amazing. I had taught myself baby SQL. I like to call it that because it's like I can do very, very simple SQL queries. But basically, we have built out several dashboards and talking about metrics, like not being scared of those. We're able to now start to look at how we're tracking different sellers who are talking about different products, if there's product adoption, that's getting people really excited about using the community. So looking at metrics and trying to understand what all of your community members want to be talking about, want to be exploring, those numbers do not lie, you will rely on them forever. Number two is to show your product team the value of community. So we had a lot of people who were really, on the community itself, our sellers, who had a lot of questions about different features, and we decided to start doing live Q&As. So we partnered with our product team, and it actually ended up becoming a really valuable use of the product team's time. They're able to do 50 seller interviews in 1 hour, essentially. And we started getting shout outs and product reviews internally. Different teams started learning about it, and they're like, this sounds so cool, I want to be able to do it. So it solved a twofold problem. Sellers didn't feel like they were being heard. Now they do feel like they're being heard because they get to talk to a product manager, and then product managers are able to talk directly to customers in a very scaled way.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, so my tip for demonstrating value or generating traction with teams internally is to put things into a context that they can better understand. If you know about forums, you understand what accepted solution rate is, what solution view percentage might be, and the actions you can take to drive for those metrics. But as soon as I go to a product team and tell them that their accepted solution rate is low, they will just kind of turn their heads and look at me like I'm not speaking English to them. So what we've done at Autodesk is we've actually developed what we're calling our board health index, and you can kind of think of it like a credit score. So it's on a scale of 1 to 1,000, and there are a variety of factors for every given forum that drive several different scores within that index. So what I can do is I can go to a product team and I was like, wow, you guys are only at 600 out of 1,000. You know, the AutoCAD team is 700. You guys are not doing as good. Here's the factor that is not working. Accepted solution rate. What you need to go do is mark more solutions in your forum. So by taking it and turning it into something that's a little more tangible to a team that's outside of the world of community, you can really do a better job of inspiring teams to take actions that you, as a community team, want them to take.
Thank you, Aaron. So before we get to questions, and we'll be there in just 2 minutes, I promise, I want to touch on the topic of self-care, right? Community teams, community managers are like Atlas in a lot of ways. You have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of user relationships sort of resting on your shoulders. So, 30 seconds or less per person, please, so we can get to the audience questions. What are your tips for self-care and sort of separating from community for a while to make sure that you're healthy and the best you can be? Aaron, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think the maybe a little bit cheesy phrase that gets thrown around is, treat self-care like it's part of your job. And I don't know if I would say that exactly, but I do think that is an extremely important consideration. And I think it's really easy to feel guilty, if you were to leave at 4 p.m. on a Friday instead of finishing up that thing you were supposed to do at 5. But when you really, take the time to value, sitting down after work and watching an episode of television and recognizing how that's refreshing you and making you a better employee the next day because you're not totally burnt out on working too much, you can say all right, I was so productive. I watched 4 episodes of Game of Thrones when I got back from work. Awesome.
Fantastic. Katie?
I think always putting it in perspective. I always joke that we're a little place on the internet because it is kind of a little place on the internet. What seems like a big fire on your community is probably not going to be the end of the world, hopefully. And then also just taking time to step back from things. There have been a lot of things going on in the larger world that I'm I just need to take a step back, take that mental health day, take that break, do whatever you need to do that makes you and puts you in a happy place, or else you won't be able to engage from a place of joy when you're doing your daily work duties.
Thank you.
I think the biggest piece of advice I can give for self-care, because I see a bunch of passionate people taking notes in this room. Be passionate, but don't over-invest in something. There's been so many times where I've over-invested in a project I'm working on that might be getting cut or redistributed somewhere. And the point of contention is not that the project is being passed off or cut down or budget's being assigned somewhere else. It's that you've over-invested in it and you've put yourself into it. Sure, maybe you've put 100 hours into this project and that sucks that they're taking it away, but that's going to happen. It's going to happen everywhere. And I think kind of, what was the word you invented earlier? Divesting or something like that?
It's a word.
Divesting, sure. Well, we'll bring it back. We'll bring it back to the beginning. We're going to divest, but keep the passion there. And I think that's the key thing, because you also don't want to completely detach and have no passion, because then that's the worst place to be for self-care. You hate your job. So be passionate, don't over-invest.
Josh?
Look for the people who are happy. The ones who are unhappy will make themselves known. No problem there, they'll tell you. The ones who are happy often won't. And so make sure you notice them, make sure you celebrate them. You need that as fuel for what you're doing, because there can often be a feeling of, everyone's complaining, how come there's always something wrong, why can't I fix this person's problem? You'll have no shortage of that. So make sure you spend extra effort and time looking for the people who are doing great work, who are saying positive things, because that can help raise up you and the rest of the community.
Thank you all for that. It's really amazing stuff. So I think we're going to do a quick Q&A, and Susan's going to take someone's mic.
All right, my last 2 community roles, I have been a CM team of 1. All right, yeah, so I'm in a much better position now, but what do you have for advice for us people who are just like out in the wild all by ourselves?
I would say a really good option is to ask for help. One of the cool things about communities is that a lot of the people are in there small business owners that go online to provide help to other small business owners with how to set up their square. You can go, whether that's going to be externally to ask, your high-level members to become super users, or to maybe help you moderate. People get excited when they're asked and make you feel special. And the other thing is you can do that internally as well. Ideally, your teams are going to be excited about your community, excited to engage with the people that are using their products. So I always say to ask, and generally I like to ask 10 people to get 1 yes. So.
I have a question.
I was just going to say, I was a fearless team of 1. You just have to go to events like this and really find your tribe, finding work partners, people who are also single community managers. And there's a lot of great resources. I know CMX has an online Slack group. I used to be in there a lot just to be like, hey, I'm dealing with this problem. Now working at Square, it's so nice that we have an entire team, because I can turn around and ask somebody. So yeah, just finding that tribe, whether it's online or in person.
And we have a Facebook group for this group too.
Oh yeah, Facebook group.
My question is about scaling. So I'm the community builder for a startup. We're now just at 50 employees. So how do you manage working with CS and product? Because now I basically touch all the customer points, from sales to deployment, post-sales, and customer success. And now everybody's kind of putting their fingers in the pie, if you will, and I have to try to step in and manage that. And then people are starting to say I own the communication, I own the webinar, and people are products worry that customers, if we do these product sessions, that they'll say negative things in the sessions. They can't control what customers say about things. So, just trust them, they'll do right. But how do you know when, and we're also kind of delaying doing any online other than a support forum on Zendesk, but we're delaying a more open community online forum, and so we're just doing face-to-face, which is what I manage. So how do you know when to flip the switch on which team owns what?
I think this is a good opportunity for you to define the scope of your program, because if you already have other teams interested in the work that's happening under your purview, that means you have some pretty good momentum. But if you've been running this thus far, it's, I would say, up to you in conjunction with the rest of your team to determine what do you want the program to be, what will its functions be and do, and how will you measure it? And that will, as you go through that process, help you determine, like, this is where it overlaps with CS, this is where it overlaps with sales, because it's unlikely that all of you are doing all the same things. So it's probably just some definition that needs to happen, and getting some buy-in from those teams that, yes, this is the program that we all agree on, and here's how it will help and impact across the org.
Hi, thank you everyone. I have a question. So a lot of the things that you mentioned are very online specific, so online communities. So my question is, what is the space for offline engagement? Because most of you are customer facing, and like how much resources do you invest in them if you do?
My community is more specifically offline than online. We have an online component, which is like the online forum, which is more support based, and we interact with our community members who are part of the official community program online, but most of their activities happen offline. So I personally think that we are at the beginning of a resurgence of offline activities, because there's been so much that's happened online, and yet still people are looking for opportunities to connect in the real world. I think you just need to really clearly define what those things are, what those activities are, how they will benefit the business and how they will benefit the community, and be really clear on how you're going to track the success of those things. For instance, we're doing this tour, and it has very clear objectives for what it needs to do in each city in terms of number of registrants, number of attendees, how sales is involved, how CS is involved, and what the overall goals for the program are. So hosting an event is great, but hosting an event with goals and then reaching those goals is way better. But I think there's definitely a place for offline engagement, and I think we're going to see more of it.
I actually just want to jump on something that you said, the resurgence of offline events. And I feel like that's something that we're experiencing now at Twitch with the TwitchCon that we run every year. This year was explosive in growth because people use our platform to connect with each other. I met my girlfriend through the platform because she's a streamer and I interacted with her. And now it's an offline thing now. You guys laugh, but it's like, no. So the reason everybody laughs is because you think about like Tinder, you think about all these things that are empowering you to connect with the exact person you want. Yeah, see, exactly. Google Plus. First girlfriend on AOL Instant Messenger, so it's like it goes back in time. So I think the thing is, you have to kind of find a way to take the brand out of the discussion. Because I think one thing that's really powerful about our conventions, whether we're hosting it or maybe we're going to PAX or we're going to E3, it's taking the brand out and becoming part of the background and then just letting your community engage with each other. And that's where the magic happens, because you could have CS sitting over there writing notes, and you could have all the product teams, trying to filter questions through, but like I think it's about how to take the brand out of it and engage the community with each other.
You can use the brand as a framing, like the events that we're doing, like they're panel discussions about teamwork and collaboration and productivity, which it just so happens that Asana helps with all of those things, but the conversation itself is not about Asana. So I think for each of your companies, each of your brands, look for like what is the core thing that your brand is there to do, and then host events around that. And that is a really great way to engage people in a truly authentic way without being like, my brand, my brand, my brand. No one wants that.
I'm going to be a bad moderator and have a point of view, which is communities in my mind are a manifestation and an expression of brand, right? So brand has so much terrible baggage from the last 20 years. Community's a way to, if you will, get it right.
It's a way to make it authentic.
Well, how about I be a panelist that's a moderator? I feel like we're very passionate about this. Maybe we should move on to the next question.
I'm gonna be a super moderator.
Nice! Whoa! I didn't even know where that was going. It's like voice of God. So,
well, I'm going to comment on that and let you know I met my wife on AOL Instant Messenger.
Yes.
So.
And he has kind of a big offline community.
A small offline community.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't recognize him at all. I was like,
okay. So Aaron shared that you have this like really awesome system that uses machine learning to connect people with questions to people that might have the right answers. I'm curious. I think all of us will have that scenario where people are asking questions and we have to find the right person in this massive community that we have that has the right answer for that person. So I was wondering if you could share anything about your systems or hacks that you use, ways you tag your community, any sort of way that you're managing that information, so when someone asks a question, you can quickly and efficiently find the right person to answer it.
I know for us, we're using GrowSumo, which is like a CRM for partners, community members. And in there, we have people answer questions as part of their onboarding challenges, which help us segment them further, like what's their industry, how big's their team, what is their specific job function, so we're able to reach out to just the people that we need to, who do a specific thing in a specific geo. Helpful for us.
We're trying to leverage lithium to do this, so we're trying to look at like, oh, we have a dry cleaner or something, so we can basically start looking at business type and tagging according to that. I don't think we would get as granular probably as dry cleaner, but something that's like in the service industry or something. So we would have basically a tag that would be according to like kind of the business type or the affinity group or something like that.
Does anyone else want to answer that question?
I don't want to get yelled at.
You're not going to get yelled at, we have a limited amount of time. Go ahead. Do you have another question?
No, it's okay. I was the one yelling last time.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't really have a fully formed question, but it's kind of just like so I work for like an anonymous platform, and I think that really transforms the way that we engage with community because of the fact that our users want to retain their privacy and they want to stay anonymous. So I don't know if I'll get any good answers, but I just wanted to put you through a thought experiment that suddenly where you worked, you had to be anonymous and respect a lot of people's privacy, and you wanted to build a community despite all of that. What methodologies might you employ to do that? Yeah, is that an okay question?
That is a perfect question. I would love to jump on this. So our platform is, I'm going to invent a term, semi-anonymous. You can create a username, you can create an identity, and then you can go online and you can do it. But you, as a person who's creating content, I also don't want you to know where my address is, but I might want you to know that I have a dog. So it's kind of their controlling the information out there. I think to answer your question, how do you foster anonymous communities together? I think it's actually a question of moderating the human psyche, and that's actually the biggest problem we have. If you have a voice and it's anonymous, it's probably going to be toxic, and that's just the problem of it. It's it.
Don't agree.
I would say that an end result is a possible toxic voice. Sorry, I would rephrase that for that.
There are plenty of well-named people who are toxic.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is going to go off the rails very quickly.
Okay, well let me put out the what I was trying to say next, which is as long as you're empowering your users to have connecting conversations, whether that connecting conversation is toxic or it's fun or it's happy or whatever, have those connections with the right people. That was what I wanted to say, because our platform is full of trolls. We have people who are the worst and most amazing people at the same time. But as long as they're connecting with each other, that's when you see communities fostered, and then you don't see these people who are trolls and maybe not trolls. And I'm using that term, maybe not everybody knows it, but as long as they're interacting with the right people, that's when you see communities develop. And then maybe the trolls aren't actually trolls. They're actually just really good people trying to find people like themselves.
I'm getting the secret hand signal from Susan that we have time for 2 more questions. Let's do a couple in the back.
Oh, Mark is in my phone line.
Okay,
Hi, Mark.
hello. So, great panel, like the meatiest OC tribe in Europe, so congratulations to all of you. I just wanted to dig in on something you said, Katie, about product webinars, because we're struggling with, we really want to make our product managers available to our community. They put in ideas. You know, we had a backlog of 250, we got down to 50, we're like working on it, and as we work on those 50, there's more come in, right? So the idea of one idea at a time versus webinars, I'd love to just get your input on that.
So the way that it works right now, they're called Q&As. So basically we schedule them we 2 weeks out before the date, we put up a post saying like, hey, we're getting this, or we're having this product manager come in, post all of your questions. This gives the product manager lead time to basically see what questions are coming in, and then they can start working on drafting all of them. We get a lot of feature requests as well, because that's something that's really like a hot topic. And so we can give a little bit of insight as to like whether we're working on this, whether we're not working on this. We ask for a lot of use cases as well, and they can continue the conversation from that point too. And it's really great because when we have that one limited hour that we're answering the questions live, it's an opportunity for sellers to drop in to potentially ask a new question, but it's something that you can put on the product manager's question or calendar, and like it basically blocks out their time. And I know product managers are busy and they like to have like kind of a finite scheduling system, I guess. So it's a limitation and an advantage for all of the people who come out there. And then our community team basically handles anything that comes out outside of it, but we can also loop the person in who was answering questions beforehand.
Thank you. We're going to optimize for question diversity instead of answer diversity in the last couple of minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. My name is Daniel. First, really, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to hear you guys sharing your information. I have an interesting question for you. You said you work with communities. You are all the time listening what people is saying, what people is doing inside of your communities. And right now, we have one of the biggest communities that is social media. Everyone here has Twitter, everyone here has Facebook, everyone here has Instagram, and all the time they are posting. Is any tool or any instruments that you are using to know what people is telling about your brand in social media, like in Twitter, anything special that you are doing, and how you are tackling that red flag that you are getting when people start talking negative, or some trolls, or some bots, especially Twitter and all these instruments that we have. People from Russia, people from China. Any special that you are doing? Thank you so much.
I mean, there are a host of social listening tools that you can use. If you have a social media team, I'd be surprised if they're not using something like that. Usually you have like your brand keywords that they would be listening for on social media. And usually, I mean, here we have a social media person that's her job to monitor what's happening on social. So I would suggest if you don't already have a social listening tool, start there. There are many. So that would be a good place to begin. Then you can monitor the conversation and decide how you want to respond, if at all.
And if I could just add a little point onto that, I actually don't think it's important what an individual says when you're looking at a community. You almost have to build a narrative around it. And I think oftentimes we get stuck into like, what are people talking about right now? Where it's more important to say, what are our 100 most engaged users talking about over the last year about this thing? And how are they talking about it there? So I think building a narrative is the question that you should try to be answering, as opposed to what tool should be used.
All right. We're done.
Well, I think we have to be out here at 8, so I'm afraid that we are done with questions. You can close.
Okay, I will now close this thing. So how about a big hand for Katie from Square?
Yeah.
Moz from Twitch. And our gracious host, Josh from Asana. Thank you guys so much.
And the moderator doing an incredible job. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. And if you guys are on the Meetup site, then you will be notified of the next event, which will be a party. Regina seems to want to make a quick announcement.
Oh no, because you always ask who's hiring and who's not.
Yeah, I didn't.
That
Well, we're really close on time, but how about this?
Never mind.
No, well, you put it out there. So who's hiring right now? Raise your hands. Who has opening jobs? Sue Madigan in the back does. So if anyone has an opening, anyone else hiring? Nope. So who's looking? The whole room raises their hands. Okay, well, if you are looking for a job, go talk to Sue in the back. If you're interested in attending my event November 16th in Berkeley, I have flyers up here. Thank you so much. This is super fun. And thank you to Asana.